Welcome back to Her Birth, Her Story, where we share real birth experiences. I'm Brooke, your host, and on today's episode, I'm sitting down with Kaitlin, who is a mom of two, about to be three very soon, and we get into obviously her birth stories, and all I have to say is I love how she tells her birth stories. They make me giggle and smile and just give me so much joy, but I love hearing the difference between both of her home births, how different and long, and maybe how she was fighting her contractions more in her first to her second that just felt very redemptive. We jump into the importance of just educating yourself, listening to other people's stories to set those realistic expectations of birth, because like we say on here all the time, birth is going to birth. And you can't go into birth just thinking that plan A is going to happen exactly perfect from start to finish, but how important it is just to set realistic expectations, because birth can look a lot of different ways. I also love how we touch on how skeptical her husband was at first when it came to her wanting to choose home birth, and how sitting down with midwives and hearing their hearts and really asking them the big, ugly, scary questions. And I think that it's so amazing that her husband was willing to listen, asked all the questions. Well, I know you're going to enjoy this episode, so please join me in holding space for Kaitlin and her stories. Hey, Kaitlin, thank you so much for coming on Her Birth, Her Story. Can you start by just introducing yourself to us?
Yes, I am Kaitlin Humphrey. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. We've been together. We'll celebrate our 10-year anniversary this year, and we have two kids, 3 and under right now, with our third one coming next month.
Before we dive into your birth stories, how did you view pregnancy and birth before ever becoming pregnant?
Yeah, birth and pregnancy, I feel like I drew from family experience, I guess. And so my mother had 4 hospital births that were very average. She didn't have difficult pregnancies. She had quick labors. And so I kind of went into it with the expectation of I should follow in her footsteps. I'm not going to have any issues. My labor should be quick and easy. So that was kind of my expectation going into it.
Yeah, and because you chose home birth for your first, right? And so what really made you want to choose home birth for your first?
Yeah, I had joined kind of a circle of friends who were more like pro home birth, talked about it, a couple of them had a home birth. And I've never had like a positive hospital experience personally. Like I never got to go to the hospital and visit somebody who had had a baby, or like every time I was at the hospital, someone was dying or I was injured, or like it was always negative, right? So I've never been super comfortable in the hospital. And so the idea of a home birth was really appealing to me because I was like, wow, I can just not leave my house. And drawing from my mom's previous births, I'm like, I shouldn't have any issues, hopefully. Like, I should be a pretty, like, average standard client. And so, yeah, so it was really, really appealing to me. I started watching home births and learning more about it. Then I was like, I was all in really years before I had a baby or got pregnant.
Yeah, that's great. So honestly, I'm going to let you go ahead and just tell your first birth story uninterrupted.
So my first pregnancy, husband and I had a week before we found out we were pregnant, we were getting ready to close on our fixer-upper. We weren't anticipating necessarily a pregnancy at that time, so it was a surprise, but the best surprise because I had always wanted to be a mom and I always wanted to be pregnant and just experience the whole thing. I quickly was like, I want to do a home birth. And he was like, I don't want you to die giving birth. And he's the youngest of his family. He has 0 birth experience or knowledge or anything. Like, wasn't not super about, medical stuff, and really is just concerned for my safety because he doesn't know much about pregnancy, birth, any of it. So we talked about it, home birth, not hospital birth, birth center. We don't really have any birth centers that are close because that was kind of like the middle ground that we kind of were coming to. And so I was like, how about we just meet with a couple of midwives. You can ask all your scary questions, and then we can go from there. So we met with, I think, 3 or 4 midwives, and he asked pretty much all of his same questions. It was basically like, what's the worst thing that could happen? How would you handle it? Like, what are the chances of her dying in childbirth? And so after we met with the midwives, I mean, he was really impressed with their knowledge. He was really impressed with their honesty, saying, okay, here's the things that could go wrong, and this is how I would handle it. And here's the likelihood that these things are going to go wrong. And so after that, we picked our midwife, and he was all in. He pursued that. And was really willing to jump on board, which I'm so grateful for. So my pregnancy was pretty normal. I was sick, 6 weeks to 12 weeks. I was real tired, vomiting in the evenings and sleeping as soon as I got home from work. I would basically get home from work at 6, sleep from 6 to 9, get up at 9, eat dinner, go back to bed. So we survived, and then everything else was pretty good. My feet started swelling towards the end, but other than that, I really have very little complaints about my pregnancy. So our daughter is a December baby. So her due date was December 16th, but both of mine have come about 10 days early, which I was not expecting, because everyone says wait to go long, expect to go long, especially with your first. So it was early December. And on a Thursday, I lost my mucus plug, which I was like, hello there. What is this? So I, sent a picture to my midwife. I was like, is this something?
Yeah.
And so she was like, well, it's a good sign, but, it still doesn't mean anything. So just wait for things to start happening. So Thursday, lost my mucus plug. Saturday, we went on a date night and went to the movies. And while we were at the movie, I was like, I think I feel like seem like more than Braxton Hicks. Like, I think something's happening. And then we went home, I went to bed, they kind of went away. The next morning when I got up and started moving around, they started again, but they weren't consistent. They weren't super strong. It was a Sunday, so I think we just decided to stay home, and we played card games with my family. We were living with my parents at the time because of our fixer-upper. So we were living with my parents, which they also, I guess, had to get on board with the home birth, because I was like, hey, I'm going to have a birth at your house.
Yeah.
But they were totally cool about it. And so we were playing games with them. I was kind of just feeling contractions, but not really having to breathe through them or anything. So then Sunday night we went to bed, and about between midnight and 3 a.m. was when I was like, wow, this is different. These feel way more intense. I'm having to breathe through them. And I feel like one of the hardest things is trying to decide when to call the midwife.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be that person that's like, it's happening. And then they get there and they're like, no, it's not. Go back to bed.
Yeah.
So I kind of waited until about 5, 6 a.m. And then I was like, maybe we should just call and see what she thinks, see where things are. My doula and my midwife got there, I think, between about 7, I think. And she checked me and I was at 5 to 6 centimeters. And I was like, great. I'm halfway there. I am killing it. So I continued laboring. She checked me again at 11, and I was still at 5 to 6 centimeters. That's unfortunate. Was really hoping we were making progress.
Yeah.
And so they decided, the midwife and doula, they were like, you guys are handling it well. We're going to go get lunch. We'll come back and check on you. Let us know if anything changes. And I'm like, okay, great. And at that point I was kind of feeling like, am I wasting their time? Things aren't progressing. So we watched a movie and just tried to relax. And I was still having contractions between 5 and 10 minutes apart. They weren't super consistent, but they were pretty intense. And so we were updating the midwife and the doula, and they were like, we'll come back around sundown probably and check on you and check to see how things are going. So they came somewhere between probably 7 and 9 p.m. And these are rough estimates because, labor land and everything. The timeline gets a little fuzzy, but it was definitely sundown. My mom had brought us dinner because they were so gracious. They went to my grandma's so that I could have the house to ourselves and have that privacy. And so she brought me dinner, and then they came back and she checked me again, and I was still 5 to 6 centimeters. At that point, I was feeling pretty defeated. I was like, I'm not sure how long I can do this because it is very uncomfortable. I'm not resting well. And so, at that point, she was like, okay, let's try some things. So we did the spinning baby stretches during contractions. So basically I did the inversion, which was like the most painful thing to do during contractions.
Ugh.
So I did that, and then we did the sideline release, and then I did another one where we used like the peanut ball, and I was like laying on my side for like half an hour or 15 minutes on each side. So we did those, super uncomfortable to do during contractions. But my midwife was then like, okay, like you did those, good job. Like, why don't you my parents have like a jacuzzi tub. So she was like, why don't you get in the jacuzzi tub, try to relax, try to rest. And I was so tired at that point, right? I had been doing it for a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was like, my contractions were picking up. They were between like 2 and 3 minutes apart. They were pretty intense. And so I got in the jacuzzi and I was like snoring in between the contractions. I was like
That's so funny.
contracting. Oh, this is so painful. And then I'm so tired. And they were like, it's actually really impressive that you could do that. It's like, well, desperate times. But so I got in the jacuzzi and my midwife was like, okay, there's another birth that's happening 10 minutes away. Do you mind if I go a second, assist that one, and I'll come back? And I was like, yeah, whatever. Wasting everyone's time anyway. So she went and my doula stayed with me. And then I was like, at that point, it was shortly after the spinning baby stretches. I was like, I'm really uncomfortable now. Then they started coming like really fast. And so my midwife was gone maybe a half an hour to an hour, maybe. I was like, wow, I'm getting really uncomfortable. And so she was like, well, why don't you get out? And then I tried to get in the shower and I was like on all fours in the shower. And I was like, I just cannot get comfortable. I need to get out of here. This is not working. Nothing is working. And so I got out of the shower and I sat on the toilet and I was like, oh, I think I feel something happening. And so she's like, well, why don't you go ahead and stand up? And I was like, okay. So I stood up and my water had broken at that point, and then it like tied itself off. So it was like a water balloon like hanging out of me.
Really?
And she was like, my doula was like, seen that before. It was like just bizarre. But so I came off the toilet and I was like, immediately got on all fours and was like, I feel like I need to push. And my doula was like, okay, let me make a call real quick. So she called the midwife. She's like, you need to get back here right now. So I pushed for 20 minutes. I think 10 of those minutes, my midwife came back, and then 10 minutes of pushing later and she was out. And so my pushing was real quick. And once I did those spinning baby stretches, it moved so fast. Like that really opened up what needed to open up or got her in the position she needed to be in. And then she was out and she put her between my legs and I pulled her up to my chest and I was just like, I did it. I looked at Josh. I was like, I did it. And so then we went to the bed and we laid down and breastfed and it was just great.
Yeah, no,
So
that's
great.
amazing. And I know that you stalled obviously for a while at 5 to 6 centimeters, and then you did those stretches. What was that like mental shift like towards like moving toward the pain instead of away from it? Because obviously with those stretches, you're not avoiding pain. Like it's not like you can just like get out of that stretch. You have to kind of endure that.
Yeah. It was a hard mental shift. Like that was the only time I cried, I think, during the whole thing was like because Joshua, I think at that point was definitely getting concerned. Like he was like, what is the next step here? Like, what do we need to do? What's happening? And so, my midwife was talking to me and she's like, we got to try this and see how it goes. And so when I was sitting in that inversion, I was like, just prayer.
Yeah.
It was it was a lot of just releasing, like, Lord, you got to do something here because I am losing steam and I don't know what else to do. So please let this be the thing that helps. And after that, it was definitely like, I don't mind the pain if it's productive, because I had experienced unproductive pain for so long, so many hours at that point that I was like, okay, if this is what's going to get me there, like, I am willing to do it. So yeah, it was definitely like if it's productive, I'm good with it. I will battle my way through it.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a lot of what birth is, especially an unmedicated birth too, is finding the purpose in the pain, because having a baby is not all just sunshine and rainbows. It's not just like you plop a baby out and here we are in all this blissful newborn wonderful time here. It's intense. And even though I don't think that the pain is the same as like excruciating, like if you break an arm or like things like that, I do think it's different personally. Obviously, I'm not speaking for everybody, but when you know what the purpose is, when you feel certain things and you know that there's a purpose behind it and it puts you one step closer, you're a little bit more like able to endure more pain, I feel. So Yeah, that's crazy that you stalled for that long too. I'm sure that that was really hard physically, but also like mentally too. You had mentioned to me too how you had to get stitches this time around and how you actually had to go to the hospital to get these stitches and how you basically became an ambassador for home birth to these students at the hospital. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so we, had my birth. She was born like 1:46 a.m. We did the breastfeeding, we took care of the placenta, and then it really was there was no rush at all in like anything at that point. Like it was just relief, it was bliss, it was the oxytocin, you're riding the high. I just feel like a boss. Like, and so then she was like, let me go ahead and check and see how things are doing down there. And so she checked it and she's like, you have a pretty severe second degree, which I think part of my stalling, I think, was one, I really fought contractions. Like I froze. I did not lean into it at all like prior to doing those stretches. And I was really afraid of pushing because I did know, like, my mom had told me that she tore every time. So I was like, I don't want to tear. I don't want to. But really, like, I didn't even feel the tearing. Like, it wasn't a thing that was like traumatic for me. And so she was like, you have a pretty bad second degree tear. And I was like, oh, wow, that's shocking. I don't know. So, and she's like, I could stitch it here, but it would just like, I don't do it every day. It's going to take me longer. She's like, I would probably recommend with how deep it is that we just head in and they can get you taken care of. So we loaded up and headed into the hospital. She called ahead. So I went straight to the labor and delivery and got a room. I didn't have to like sit in a waiting room or anything. And then a lady came in while we were waiting for the doctor and was like, we have some students here. If you'd be willing to let them come observe for their learning. And I was like, okay. Again, I'm still riding the high and I'm feeling pretty good about myself. So I was like, how many are we talking? And she's like, well, however comfortable with. So I was like, I'll take 4 women only, please. And so these ladies came in and they were super sweet. And my midwife had come to the hospital with us. So like my midwife was answering questions and they were asking me about it. And so, I'm just singing the praises of home birth because I have never felt more powerful in my entire life. And they were so sweet. And one of them held my hand while I got the stitches. And they
Aw.
were so nice and so kind about it. And so I got my stitches and then I was like, ta-da, how's it look, guys? You let me know. And they were great. So yeah, so I got the stitches. They brought, Joshua had kept our daughter in the car because I was kind of like, germs.
Yeah.
But he did have to bring her in so I could nurse her because the wait was a little bit. So he brought her in. They all got to meet her. And so it was a really great experience. The doctor was great, fast, and easy. I mean, it wasn't anything complicated or anything.
Yeah. I think it's great too that your midwife still decided to come to the hospital with you as well, that they didn't just be like, okay, see ya. Like,
Yeah.
I just think that that really speaks to, and not all midwives, because I've also heard stories where there's been some traumatic things that the midwife did not even go. And now, granted, I know there's always things too, like they have other clients and sometimes they send
Yeah.
an assistant. So I'm not saying anything upon that, but just the fact that she cared so much about you to still see it all the way through, I think speaks volumes to your midwife specifically.
Oh,
And
yes.
I think it's great too that basically you might be the only like little view into home birth for those students too, and just
Yeah.
exposing them to what that could be and what that, like, answering those questions and stuff too. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. And my midwife was amazing. She was so great. And she came back home with us even afterwards to get her stuff and she made us breakfast. I mean, she was amazing. She
Wow.
really was.
I love
Yeah.
that. And so honestly, right now, I'm going to let you just jump into your second birth story.
Okay. Well, my second birth story, again, my pregnancy was about the same. Nausea actually a little bit less the second time around, which was surprising. I was actually probably just as nauseous, but I didn't do as much vomiting as I
Yeah.
did the first time.
Good. Good.
Yeah, it was nice. And so pregnancy was normal. We were having a July baby instead of a December baby. So it was a completely different season. Again, came a little bit early. And both times my water did not break until like I was pushing. So it was a Sunday morning. I was getting my daughter ready for church. My husband led worship at the time. So he was already at practice. And it was basically like, it was 9 a.m. And I was like, ooh, like came on very suddenly, came on pretty strong. And I was like, So I like kept trying to get ready. Ooh, I think this might be it. And then, so I called my husband because at that point I was like trying to have contractions, but I have a 18-month-old. And so she's like pulling my hair and, wondering what I'm doing. And so I'm like, you got to get back here because I can't do this alone. And so, yeah, so he came home and my mom came and picked her up shortly afterwards. I tried to get in the bath, but I was like, nope, not comfortable in here. Laying on my back was never comfortable for me. So I did pretty much zero laboring on my back both times. And the first time I had a birth pool, but I never made it into the birth pool because my daughter was born on the bathroom floor. So this time my goal was to make it to the birth pool.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm laboring. We like 10:30. I'm like, I don't know, we should probably call the midwife. Again, I'm like, my last birth took so long, so maybe I should wait. I don't know. And so he just texted her. He's like, hey, I think this might be it. And she's like, well, how are things going? Which I had the same midwife and the same doula, which was great. I loved that. She was like, my midwife was like, let me just call you. Like, I'd like to listen to Kaitlin through a contraction and just see where things are at. So she called and she's like, just put it on speaker and wait for a contraction. So she listened to me through a contraction. She's like, I think I'm going to head there. I'm thinking that it's time. And so my midwife and my doula showed up probably 11:30-ish and started filling up the pool. And they started getting it blown up. Both of them had come about 10 days early. And so I always thought I had more time. And so I had not yet gotten a hose for the pool. And so I called my sister, or my husband called my sister and was like, hey, can you just run to Home Depot real quick and grab a hose? So she was my knight in shining armor delivering the hose.
Wow.
So they got the hose, they got it all blown up. And this time through contractions, I was like super mobile. Like before I would like lay down through contractions, I would like tense, I would tighten. This time I did a lot of swaying, I did a lot of squatting because I was like, I am about the productive contractions.
Yeah.
We are not here to waste time. And I want to make sure that this baby has whatever it needs to move to where it needs to go to make progress. So I did a lot of moving. I did a lot of squatting. And then I was like, man, I really want to get in that pool. And so as soon as it was tall enough, I got in, but they were like, you have to lay on your back because the water's not high enough. So I laid on my back and suffered through those contractions. I was like, this was a terrible idea. I should not have gotten in yet.
Yeah.
And so as soon as the water was high enough, they were like, okay, you can flip over. So I flipped over and was leaning over the side of the pool and contracting in there. And I was probably not in there for more than a half an hour, I would say, before I was like, okay, now I have to push. And again, 20 minutes of pushing and he was out. I mean, my contractions started at 9:30 and he was out by 3.
Wow.
So yeah, 6 hours. It was quick. It was, way easier.
Yeah.
Way easier that time around.
Yeah.
And so he came out, we moved to the bed. I guess I pushed the placenta out in the pool as well. And then we moved to the bed and I nursed him and she was like, you have a second degree again. But this time it's like it was basically the same spot where the scar tissue was from the previous tear. She's like, it's not as deep. And I would probably recommend, like, there's research coming out that maybe it's better if you don't stitch it. So I didn't get it stitched that time. And my recovery was way easier, it felt like. With my stitches, I couldn't go up and down the stairs for like 2 weeks, and which was bad because we were living on the second floor. So I was basically just confined to the upstairs.
Shoot.
And then, yeah. And so this time I felt so great. And so then I was like, how much do you chalk it up to it's the second birth? How much do you chalk it up to stitches versus not stitches? I don't really know. But I would say that from my 2 experiences, not getting stitched was way better.
Yeah, no kidding. Especially because when you got stitched, did you do any pain medication? Like, did they give you like a lidocaine shot or anything like that?
Yeah, I did get like localized shots to numb it before the stitches for sure. Yeah.
I literally tell every single person, which I don't know what they specifically use for you, but I will birth 50 babies unmedicated before I get a lidocaine shot ever again in my whole entire stinking existence. I am not kidding. When anybody ever tells me like, oh, I'm so surprised that you birth your babies unmedicated. I'm surprised that you can get a lidocaine shot and not scream your head off. That is the worst pain I
Yeah.
have ever felt in my whole entire life. I literally got
So
a
funny.
mole removed on my toe, and they had to put it in there, and the lady was like, she was like, "Oh, you birth babies unmedicated. You'll be fine. You can hold my hand, but you'll be fine." And I said, that is not what babies feel like coming out. I can tell you that for a fact.
It's so funny. Yeah.
So, yeah, that right there,
Yeah.
honestly, I'd almost rather get stitches without the freaking lidocaine shot at that point because
That is hysterical. I feel like the investigating and cleaning portion was worse for me because they were like, "Well, let's see how deep it is." And I'm like, Let's not see how deep it is, please.
yeah, see,
It's been through a lot today."
I didn't really, like, experience that, so I can't speak from that, but I'm just
Yeah,
going
yeah, yeah.
off of this lidocaine shot that I got in my freaking toe. So, what do you feel that you learned from your first birth that really helped you have a more, like, redemptive birth or just, like, a easier birth for your second?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was working with contractions instead of fighting them. I think also the familiarity of like what my body's doing. Cause I feel like, the first birth, everything is so foreign. You're like, what is even happening right now? But the second birth, I felt like I could feel a lot more like the baby is moving. And also I read the Bradley method book, The Natural Birth the Bradley Way. And that was super helpful for me going into my second because I didn't find it until I was pregnant with my second. But that understanding of like, okay, here are the different phases. And it just laid it out in a way that was so understandable for me. Like I did a birth class. I took an online birth class with my first and they, showed all the things. For whatever reason, how the Bradley method book just really went through it all. Like I felt like I could see what he was talking about through each step of my second birth and learning to lean into them and that productive contractions are so good, like, because it's getting you closer to your baby. Cause
Yeah.
fighting the contractions, like, the body is so good at knowing where your mental headspace is too. And like, so I was so fearful of pushing that I feel like I stalled myself to some extent because my body was like, we don't want to do this. We're like, postpone.
Yeah.
And so I think that was super helpful for me going into my second was just like, okay, here are the phases. This is the phase that I'm in, like, and that means I'm getting closer, right? And obviously the encouragement from my birth team and everything too is helpful with that too, because they also know and can remind you like you are getting closer, like you're almost there.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important. And I love the fact that, you talk about how your husband was really like squeamish at first when it came to the thought of home birth and really just was so unsure and really didn't want to kind of take that route. What do you think was the biggest thing for him that he went from no way to then being the support person that you needed for your home births?
Yeah, I think a big part was understanding because he had zero understanding to begin with. He just knew birth is a medical thing because people go to hospitals to give birth and things do go wrong. People have had things go wrong and it's the reality of anything, really. And so I think that the wisdom and knowledge and training, like once he learned what midwives do go through to become qualified, certified, and their medical knowledge, and also what they provide. Like they do have medical equipment, they have oxygen, they have things and tools in their belt. They're not walking in unprepared for any emergency. And like the midwife policy around here, at least, is each midwife usually like they have a second midwife because once the baby's born, there's two patients, right? And so I think that was reassuring because then he was like, okay, so they do like they've thought through this and they do have a plan for like if something happened to baby, if something happened to mom, like they have two caretakers to make sure that both are cared for in the best way possible. So I think that reassured him a lot.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. And to be honest, I think that's always everybody's hesitation and why a lot of people do speak negatively about home birth is just because they don't understand. It's just like with anything in life, too. When you don't really understand, it's really easy to kind of either think negatively instead of, actually looking into it and asking questions. And that's just like a common thing that I hear when people receive some like negative feedback about doing a home birth is then when those people actually talk to the midwife or they're there for the birth and they see what's going on, their whole mentality towards it shifts because they're like, "Oh wow, they do actually know what they're doing. They are actually trained." And I am glad though that your husband was also able to see that so that then you guys were able to, experience these two home births and hopefully a third, correct? Cuz
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Are you still using the same midwife team too or
I wish. Unfortunately, by the time I reached out to her, she was not available.
man,
So, that was a bummer. I
yeah.
was spiraling a little bit at the beginning because I had such a great birth team, but
Yeah.
my doula, had her 4th baby last year, so she's out of the game for now. And then my midwife was like, "I wish I could squeeze you in, but I don't have any availability." So then I was like, "Dang, I'm starting back from square one on my 3rd birth."
Man,
But I did find, praise the Lord, found another midwife, and I love her, and she's great, and I'm really excited to work with her.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that stinks, but it is great that you did find another one that you feel really confident with and safe too. Speaking of your doula, you mentioned that having a doula who had personally given birth made such a huge difference for you. What was that specific like encouragement she gave you that just felt different from maybe the encouragement from your husband or your midwife?
Yeah. My husband and my midwife, both great encouragers, not to discount them at all, but neither of them have given birth themselves. And there is something in the primalness of birth that is like you want somebody who has gone before you to be able to speak into what you're going through, right? It's like with most things, most hard things, especially, is you like nice platitudes from people who have no idea are great. But if somebody comes to you and is like, "Hey, like I've also been through this and I'm just going to let you know like you will get through this." It doesn't really matter what it is. Any hardship. And so it definitely felt like that in the way of like my husband's like, "You got this, you could do this." Like my midwife's like, "You got this, you could do this." And I'm like, "Y'all don't know what crap. Like you don't know how hard this is." But my doula, who had done it, I think 3 times at the time, was like, "You can do this. Like I've been where you are, like you have what it takes to get through this." And so that's like, I want to listen to her. She needs to speak to me because she knows where I'm at, like in my mind. And so there's just something different about it when somebody's been in the place you are to be able to speak into it in a different way.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I love always talking about the moment, especially in an unmedicated birth. I feel like in every birth, like this isn't so amazing, but especially in an unmedicated birth too, of just the moment that your baby is born, your baby's on your chest, and you just have this like proud feeling of, wow, I just did that. What does
Yeah.
it mean to you looking back on both of your experiences?
Man, wow. I appreciate about it like that it's just a beautiful beginning to motherhood and to welcoming another life. And like the instant that you get that baby out, like there is like it's all gone. It doesn't even matter anymore, like 5 hours of misery. But I literally it did not matter one lick after that baby had come out. And the dramatic shift of Joshua was Joshua says with my daughter specifically, he was like, I was looking like 25 hours in, I was looking at a broken Kaitlin. Like I was starting to feel really defeated. I was a little bit like, I went in pretty confident. Like my mom had quick labors. It should be quick and easy and whatever. And so I was feeling like starting to feel really defeated. Like I actually am not sure that I can do this much longer. Like I really am starting to question, which I know like transition, that's a big thing with transition too, is that everyone's like not actually sure I could do it anymore. And so he's like, it was like I was looking at a broken Kaitlin, and then like the instant you gave birth, Kaitlin was back. Like, and I was like, yeah, okay, I could do that again. Like, and it was crazy. And then with my son, I mean, it's just you've waited 9 months to look at this face, and like, I wonder what they look like. And I just want to stare at them. And it just becomes like this all enwrapping, like love and joy and peace. and the pain that was all consuming a moment ago is now like so distant in your memory. Like it's so quick to be like, wow, like it was like it didn't feel like much after it was over. It really felt like minimal compared to the joy I'm experiencing now.
Yeah, no, and I always say too that when you meet your baby, it truly is a love at first sight. Obviously, you love your baby when they're in your womb and growing and developing too, but like it really is such an overwhelming feeling when you first see your baby, you hear your baby, you hold your baby. Like there is literally, I always say that it is one of the top moments in my life. Obviously, my salvation and marrying my husband are top ones as well, but like my
Yeah.
birthing my babies and holding my baby, like, man, there is nothing better than that. Okay, as you prepare for your third birth, what is maybe one thing that you're doing differently, or are you doing everything exactly the same based on your experiences?
Yeah. I'm rereading the Bradley method book because I just felt like it was so helpful for me the first time. But generally, I don't feel like I'm doing a ton different. If I could recreate my son's birth, like I would be golden, right? It was all during the day. It was like it was less than a normal work day. So it was the ideal birth. If I could just redo that one, that would be great. I am trying to just stay active with the two kids that I have and make the most of the time that I have with them while just working really hard to keep the positive mindset and mental prepare. I feel like birth is 90% mental, honestly, because your
Agreed.
body already knows what to do. Like you just have to learn to mentally handle it and work with it instead of fighting it. So I think that the biggest thing I'm doing is just rereading the Bradley Method book, drinking my electrolytes,
Good.
taking my supplements. I mean,
Yeah.
those are the main things.
Yeah. No, I think that's great, and that's one thing that I love that I had, like a competitive athletic background because when I worked out or I did things and it was always one more rep, I really took
Yeah.
that mentality into birth, and I think that really helped me because just like you said, like, agree, it is, like, 90% mental, just like a lot of hard
Yeah.
things that you think of that you do throughout your life. Majority
Yeah.
of it is mental. And obviously there is
Yeah.
physical that comes along with it too. But if you don't prepare the mental side of it, then it's a lot harder, I think, personally.
For sure. It reminds me of that scene from Facing the Giants where he's like crawling on the football field. He's like, one more. And then he's like,
Yes.
look where you are.
No,
I'm like,
really.
yeah.
I think that's a great representation of kind of how it goes. Like, you just have to face each contraction as its own. You can't always be looking forward to the next contraction, but just handle the one that you're on,
Yeah.
breathe, and then work through the next one. Take one more. Take one more. Don't worry about
Right.
how many more you have, you know?
Right. And make the most of your breaks. Like,
Yes, yes,
make the most of that rest time
yes.
because God's given it to you for a reason. So
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. What is one piece of advice you would give to a first time mom wanting to choose home birth for her first?
I would say pick your birth team wisely, have a doula, and read the Bradley book.
Yeah, no, really. I think that
Yeah.
honestly that's great advice because when you interview midwives too, even if you interview four and you like all of them, but you don't
Yeah.
love one of them, then maybe you should keep looking because you got to find somebody you feel safe with, someone that you can trust because like you're going to be in your most vulnerable position doing all of this, especially as a first time mom, as a home birth, and you want someone who's going to
Yeah.
support you through it. So, I love that
Yeah.
you were able to find that as well. And I'm sorry that you're not able to use her for your third, but hopefully this other midwife is just as amazing.
Yes. Well, Haley Herbert, do you know
Yeah,
Haley
she was on
Herbert?
the podcast.
She's my midwife now.
You're in great hands. Yeah,
So she's who I switched to. I feel like I didn't downgrade. So it was a
for
good
sure.
lateral move.
Yes, no, you're in great hands. Yeah,
Yeah,
she
yeah.
was on the podcast, one of our first,
Yeah.
I think episode 5 and 7 maybe? Yeah, no, she has a wealth of knowledge, and she was actually my doula for my first birth. So,
She
yeah,
really?
she's amazing, and she's a good
That's awesome.
family friend of ours too, so You're in great hands. You are really big in just hearing other people's stories to just set those realistic expectations. Can you kind of speak to the value in hearing other moms' real and raw birth stories?
Yes, there's such a benefit to hearing the variety that birth brings, and that it is a lot of it's not either positive or negative. It's just different. And it just looks so different. Like, so many people, when I was getting ready to give birth with my first, were like, oh, like labor on the toilet. The toilet's the best place to labor, backwards on the toilet. And I tried that and I'm like, horrific, terrible idea.
Yeah.
And it was just so painful for me, which probably meant that it was being very productive, but I did not enjoy it at all. And so I do think that hearing the variety of birth stories and hearing all the different ways people deal with contractions, different ways they handle transition, different ways that they experience birth, pushing, all of it can help really normalize whatever your experience is, to know when you're going through, if it looks a little different than somebody else, like still in the realm of normal, and that it's not bad. And it also gives you a variety of things to try, right? Like, people are like, use the comb. People are like, sit on the toilet. I'm like, don't labor on your back because youch.
Yeah.
Like, birth pool is great. Didn't like the birth pool. I mean, there's so many different opinions that people have. And I think it's so great to take all those in, because then when you're in the moment, you have things to try.
Yeah.
And you're not like, okay, this is my one option. It's either the birth comb's going to work for me or I'm sunk. Like, it gives you just such a variety of opportunities to try different things and figure out what works for your body and what works for this labor and this birth and this baby.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. I'm a toilet lover. I love laboring on the toilet. It is my favorite place just because I feel like you can truly just like dilate. Like, I call it the
Yeah.
dilation station because
Yeah.
I did that for both of my births just because like anything that comes out of you, you don't really care because it's going in the toilet. You're not on your bed. You're not on the floor. That's the only reason why I like it. I don't think I never turn around the other way and lean on it. I just literally sit on the toilet. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm one of those people. But
Yeah. See, I did it for productivity only,
yeah,
not for any other reason. But
yeah. No, I get it. But I do love how you spoke to how every birth is different. Even your own birth experiences are different. So something that worked for you for your first might be absolutely atrocious for your second, and something that didn't work for your first might be the only thing that really brings you relief in your second. And I think that that's so important going into birth with those tools in your toolbox, just to be able to try anything and everything, because you never know what's going to work. If you could speak one piece of empowering wisdom into the hearts of the mothers listening, what would that be?
I would say find a circle that's going to encourage you in whatever your birth plan is. Lean into the person that created you and the way birth was designed, and make sure that your birth team is ready to support you when the day comes.
Yeah, that is so good. And Kaitlin, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on Her Birth, Her Story.
Thank you.
Wow, those were amazing stories. I love how she shares her stories and how sweet and passionate she is when it comes to her birth stories, and just how empowering they are. So, Kaitlin, thank you so much for sharing your stories and empowering women through them. If you enjoyed this episode and it inspired you or empowered you in any way, please share it with another mama or mama to be who needs to hear it. And if you can, like, rate, review, subscribe to our show. This just helps us to be able to reach as many moms as we possibly can. And as always, remember that this is your body, your baby, and your birth. We are reclaiming birth one story at a time. I also want to add this disclaimer that this is not to be taken as medical advice. And just remember, these are people's real experiences. These are things that moms have went through. This is their real, raw experience, their own personal convictions, and none of this is to be taken as medical advice. Please make sure that if you are seeking medical advice, then reach out to your own provider so that you can figure out what is best for you.